On the morning of September 11th, 2001, the world changed forever. It was a clear, calm Tuesday morning in New York City. The sky was bright blue, and millions of Americans were starting their day, heading to work, grabbing coffee, catching flights. Nothing seemed unusual. But behind the scenes, a deadly plan was already in motion. 19 terrorists from the extremist group Al-Qaeda had hijacked 4 commercial airplanes. Their mission was simple yet horrifying: to turn these planes into weapons and strike key targets in the United States. At 8:46 a.m., the first sign of terror unfolded. American Airlines Flight 11, traveling from Boston to Los Angeles, slammed into the North Tower of the World Trade Center. The impact was massive, tearing through floors 93 to 99. A fireball erupted, sending smoke billowing into the sky. People on the ground stared in shock. Many believed it was a tragic accident, perhaps a pilot error or mechanical failure. But that illusion didn't last long. At 9:03 a.m., just 17 minutes later, a second plane, United Airlines Flight 175, crashed into the South Tower. This time, millions watched it happen live on television. Now there was no doubt. America was under attack. Inside the towers, chaos erupted. Thousands of people were trapped on upper floors. Some tried to escape through smoke-filled stairwells, while others were stranded with no way down. Firefighters and police officers rushed into the buildings, climbing upward as others ran down. They knew the danger, yet they continued, driven by duty and courage. Outside, the streets of New York turned into scenes of panic. Sirens echoed everywhere. Ash and debris began to fall like snow. Meanwhile, the attacks were not over. At 9:37 a.m., a third hijacked plane, American Airlines Flight 77, crashed into the Pentagon in Washington, D.C. The explosion caused severe damage to the western side of the building and killed many inside. The United States military headquarters had been struck. The nation was under coordinated attack. Back in New York, the situation worsened by the minute. The fires inside the towers weakened the steel structures. Temperatures soared to extreme levels. Floors began to collapse one by one. At 9:59 a.m., the South Tower suddenly gave way. In just seconds, it collapsed into a massive cloud of dust and rubble. The sound echoed across the city. People ran for their lives. Then, at 10:28 a.m., the North Tower also collapsed. In less than 2 hours, both towers of the World Trade Center were gone. A skyline that once symbolized strength and ambition was now covered in smoke and silence. But there was still one more chapter unfolding in the sky. United Airlines Flight 93, the fourth hijacked plane, was heading toward a target believed to be either the White House or the U.S. Capitol. However, something extraordinary happened on that flight. Passengers learned about the earlier attacks through phone calls. Realizing their fate, they made a brave decision: to fight back. Led by ordinary people, they attempted to regain control of the plane from the hijackers. Their actions forced the plane to crash into a field in Pennsylvania at 10:03 a.m. Everyone on board was killed, but their sacrifice likely saved countless lives on the ground. By the end of the day, the scale of the tragedy became clear. Nearly 3,000 people lost their lives. Among them were firefighters, police officers, office workers, airline passengers, and innocent civilians from over 90 countries. Thousands more were injured. Families were shattered. Communities were left in grief. The attacks were orchestrated by Osama bin Laden, the leader of Al-Qaeda, who had long been planning a strike against the United States. In the aftermath, the world responded with shock and solidarity. Countries across the globe expressed support for America. Vigils were held, flags were lowered, People stood together in mourning. But 9/11 didn't just bring sadness, it brought change. The United States launched the War on Terror, beginning with military action in Afghanistan. New security measures were introduced worldwide, especially in airports. Intelligence systems were strengthened, surveillance increased. Travel would never feel the same again. The attacks also changed how nations viewed terrorism. It was no longer a distant threat, it was immediate and real. Years later, the site where the towers once stood became a place of remembrance, the 9/11 Memorial and Museum. Two large reflecting pools now mark the footprints of the original towers, with the names of the victims engraved around them. Every year on September 11th, moments of silence are observed at the exact times the planes struck and the towers fell, because this is a day the world will never forget. 9/11 was not just an attack on buildings, it was an attack on people, on hope, and on humanity itself. But even in the darkest hours, something powerful emerged. Courage. Firefighters who ran into collapsing towers, passengers who fought back against terror, strangers who helped each other survive. It showed the world that even in the face of unimaginable tragedy, the human spirit cannot be broken. Because while that day was filled with loss, it was also filled with bravery, unity, and resilience. And that is why we remember, we honor, we never forget.